Pillars of Islam, we're going to see how what Muhammad taught wound up going and becoming the religion of Islam today. So I'm recording this lecture, and if you don't talk, you won't pop up anyways, but just to be sure, you guys all know that I am doing that. Now, disclaimer, before we get really started in here, we have to remember that Westerners butchered the translations of these words. So you're going to see these words spelled a ton of different ways. It's extremely frustrating how, you know, letters are going to be changed and different. We're going to see a couple examples of that today. So starting off with it, we have our very first pillar of Islam, the Shahada. Now, the Shahada is going to be the public profession of a belief in one God. So much like how in Christianity, there's the idea, well, some sects of Christianity have this idea of like taking your first communion, how that's a big deal, or confirmation, or how Judaism, you have bar mitzvahs and bat mitzvahs, I think is how you pronounce it for the girls. I'm never good with that one. You know, when you become fully into the community, it's the same idea where you would go in front of your mosque and you would declare that you believe in one God and you say that Muhammad is his prophet. So the Shahada is going to be an important milestone for any Muslim growing up. Our second pillar is the Salat, which I remember I said things are spelled differently. Sometimes you'll see it pronounced or spelled Salah with an H instead of a T. I think it's pronounced Salah, but spelled often Salat. I'm not entirely sure. I don't speak Arabic, so I'm doing my best here. But this is going to be the belief that you should pray 5 times a day. Now, no, this isn't Rachel saying, okay, I'm going to get up in the morning, I'm going to do my quick prayer 5 times, and then I'm done for the day. No, it's set specific times during the day when you're supposed to pray. For your project tomorrow that you're going to work on for this, there's going to be a little comic, and it's going to show you exactly the times that you pray on. It's like morning, you know, before noon, afternoon, sunset. Let's see, I can just pull it up right here. Since we've got 5 pillars. This idea that you stop what you are doing and you pray to God. And you are going to go face Mecca when you do it. Fun fact, it wasn't originally Mecca. When Muhammad and his followers were in Medina, they actually faced Jerusalem. But now it is facing Mecca. Where is that silly comic? There it is. Yep, so you get this comic tomorrow, and we can see, so morning, midday, halfway between midday and sunset, 1 hour after sunset, and sunset would be the times that you are going to pray, and this will be available to you tomorrow anyway, so that you'll be able to get it. And once again, we see, look, it's spelt with an H instead of a T. Okie dokie. So prayer 5 times a day. You're going, if you are in a predominantly Muslim country, you might go and hear the imam going from the top of a minaret tower, going and basically doing the Arab call to prayer. And like I said, people stop and they pray. You know, this is at a mosque right here, but you could be anywhere. And some people, they carry around a prayer mat to, you know, be able to go down. And something like that would look like these right here, and you'd carry that with you and you'd put it down, and we have where it points, that's where you're going to point it towards Mecca. Okie dokie. Where'd my PowerPoint go? Now you're seeing about the Akkadians. Our third pillar is the Zakat or Zakah, which is going to be charity, giving to the poor. You know, people will go and donate their time or their wealth to help those in need. Now, as we look at these 3 things, we see how well this goes with what Muhammad was preaching. Muhammad preached monotheism. So he says one of the parts what you should do if you're a Muslim is you should acknowledge that you believe in only one God. You know, he said we should depend on God. We should pray to God. You know, Islam means surrendering to the will of God. And here we say, so part of that is this ritual, praying 5 times a day for it. You know, Muhammad preached that all people were equal and you should share your wealth. Money wasn't everything. So we have the zakah, giving to the poor. So now we get to the 4th pillar, the siyam, which you'll sometimes see it spelled completely differently, like S-W-A-R-M. the swarm, but it's the same thing. Usually you see it spelled this way, but that is going to be fasting during the month of Ramadan. Now, before you get thinking this is crazy, no, it is not meaning that for a whole month Veronica doesn't eat any food, because that would be a good way for Veronica to be dead, and we don't want that to happen to Veronica. We love her. So yeah, not a whole month where you don't eat at all, but it's when the sun is up. So you can eat a light breakfast before, when it's dawn. So you can eat a light breakfast. During the day, you can drink water, and then you have to wait till sunset to then you have a nice big meal. So it's fasting during the day. Now, if you are very young or very old or you're sick, you don't have to follow this. You can go because they don't want people to get worse because of it. So let's think about this one, though. These three are so easy to see how they went with Muhammad's teachings. How would fasting during this month of Ramadan go with what Muhammad taught his followers? So either raise your hand or give me a me in the chat. How does fasting during the month of Ramadan go with Muhammad and his followers? Oh, Nora was so desperate to go last time. So, is that Jude volunteering an answer? Or is he just saying hello in the chat? Jude's like, I'm just saying hello. I'm just saying hello. Don't call on me. All right, Nora.
It relates to the teaching of Muhammad, because back when he was poor and before he married his wife, he had nothing, and all his family members died during his childhood, and oftentimes he wouldn't even eat for weeks.
Yeah, so thank you, Nora. Good job. So it's this idea that, there are people that don't have everything that everyone else does. And so it helps you identify with the poor. It helps you acknowledge that all people are equal. I've done fasting before through my church, and one of the things with fasting is this idea that you can focus on God when you're fasting. It reminds you of your need for Him, because the idea was that He would, provide you with all things. So very, very good, Nora. So the idea of equality amongst other people, feeling what people less fortunate have. And we get to our final pillar, the fifth pillar, the Hajj. Now, this one is all about taking a pilgrimage to Mecca if you have the money, the means to be able to go. So, the idea is you would retrace what we have, all the Muhammad steps. You'd go to Mecca, you'd circle the Kaaba, you would go to some other considered holy sites, like I think it's the stones of Jeddah, and you throw little rocks at these big pillars to represent stoning sin, the killing of sin. So you would go retrace Muhammad's footsteps, going and visiting Mecca, taking a pilgrimage if you have the means. If you have a question, Delicia, you're more than welcome to ask it. But what's your question, darling? And you could type it, or you can just talk. It will just pop up with a big D since you don't have your camera on, so that's fine. You don't have to worry about that. Or you can type it in the chat. Oh, that was your question. If you can ask a question. Yeah, you guys can always ask questions. I'm your teacher. I'm here for you. I mean, not like Lydia or Iris or Savona, but everyone else. I'm just kidding. I love you girls. You're the best. Okay, so moving on, since I don't see any questions. Well, you can't talk when I'm talking, because that would be rude. But if you want to verbalize a question, you most certainly can. Now, this is important. The Quran is the holy book of Islam. We talked about the holy book of Christianity being the Bible. For Judaism, we have the Torah. For Hinduism, we talked about the Upanishads. So we've got, the Quran is the holy book. Here are two ways it is spelled. There are multiple ways you'll see this spelled. These are the two very common ways for the Quran. Quran, holy book, you got to know it. And the idea was that these passages were given to Muhammad by the angel Gabriel. We talked about this. He was in the cave, And he said the angel Gabriel visited him and would hit him with a stick whenever he made a mistake writing things down because he didn't know how to write. Next important thing would be to know is Sharia, which is going to be the Islamic law. Now, these are going to be rules that come from the Quran, just like how in, the Bible or Old Testament and the Torah, you have like books like the Leviticus, which give like all these laws, or the Ten Commandments, which we see in Exodus 20. We're going to see some of these laws found within the Quran. Other versions of these laws are going to come from Islamic tradition, just like how we talked about in Christianity, where we have St. Augustine going and being one of the early church fathers and writing his commentaries on what he thought parts of the Bible meant, which created some Christian doctrine. Teachers that studied Islam, imams, are going to say, well, I believe this passage means this. And that's going to wind up getting passed down over these hundreds of years and wound up becoming part of the Sharia tradition. There are lots of different spellings, Savona. It is very frustrating. And it just disappoints me because, like, all of these mistranslations and things like this, if someone just would have taken the time the first time, there would be not so much confusion. Now we get to the final word we need to understand, and this one is the most misunderstood. And unfortunately, there's some pretty terrible ramifications that get associated with this, and I certainly hope that my cherubs, you all, are going to be much wiser and mature than the vast majority of Americans, because unfortunately, there's a lot of misconceptions here. And believe it or not, like Lydia made a quick face, you all know more than a lot of people do about the world, like already with the things you've been taught. So you should be happy about that because you're awesome. Don't let it go to your heads. But so jihad, there are two definitions for it. And the first definition would be the lesser jihad. And this is the misunderstood one, war. All right. The greater jihad is the more important one, this idea of the struggle within yourself to listen and obey God. Think about all those times in your life when you've known the right thing to do, but then there's the easier, not right thing to do, and you sometimes go for the easier, not right thing to do. That kind of struggle inside is would be considered the greater jihad, this idea to listen, to obey God's law. The lesser jihad wars, there are times we're going to talk about that in this history class, this idea when we get to the Crusades, when Christians invade the Holy Land to try to, and when I say Holy Land, Jerusalem, Israel, Palestine, and try to control that, Muslims will wage a jihad, a war, because it's a religious war. It's all about religion. Today, people see this and they think about a couple bad people like Osama bin Laden, who committed terrorist acts in the name of Islam. They say, oh, well, all Muslims want to have jihad against America and destroy it, and it's just terrible. Well, that's not true. There are some people that use Islam as an excuse to do bad things, just like how there's some people who use Christianity as an excuse to do bad things, and people who use every single reason. We talked about the Zealots. They were essentially terrorists to the Romans, the same idea under Judaism. There have been times in history where Buddhists or Hindus, which are very peaceful religions, have used their religion as an excuse because they weren't really following their religion and they're being mean and nasty because there are mean, nasty people out there. So please, 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 if someone ever says, oh, all Muslims are terrorists or they hate America, stuff like that, that's simply not true. There are some people that are terrorists, but guess what? There are some people for terrorists for every single thing that believe in God, people that are terrorists that are atheists that don't believe in God. Okay? So be wiser than some people around you. Know more. Be awesome. And that is our notes for the day, my cherub. So I am going to go and stop recording. Are there any questions